10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Game over.
What? You thought something would be different? You thought that the timeout or the time off would change things? You thought that players coming back off of COVID protocol and injuries would change the result? This is the 2021-2022 Montreal Canadiens. Nothing changes. We continue this slog of awfulness, unwatchable hockey until the end, and hopefully they get a reward. All right, I'm going to welcome in my guest today. It's Scott Matla from Habs Eyes on the Prize and Locked On Canadiens, and Dave Kaufman, formerly of The Kaufman Show, which is still his @ on Twitter, and hosting a new podcast called Delve. Have I got that right, Dave?
Yeah, it's part of McGill's Business School. Their publication, their thought leadership publication is called Delve, and I do a podcast for them called The New Normal, which seems to change every damn day, unless it's you're watching a Habs game and then it's the same old.
It's always the same. So I think we can call you Dave Kaufman Thought Leader, right? That's what we're going here, right?
Thought Leader Explainer, I think is more Thought Leader Explainer. Yeah, I'm gonna have to come up with something better for the business cards, but it'll be probably going to be a long time before we're handing them out in person anyway. So all good.
Perfect. All right. So this was a game that was played.
Are we sure?
Yeah.
Are we sure? I saw one team play, but I don't know about the other.
Yeah. I mean, we've got some interesting things to talk about at the very least, right? Like off the ice, Bergevin has a new job already, which, was rumored before he was even out of the Canadiens organization that he was going to go to LA. We'll chat about that. I always try to start things off with a positive, right? And it's very difficult in this season to find positives, unfortunately. Michael Pezzetta was a positive tonight. He was great. He scored a pretty nice goal. He agitated the Bruins. But if Michael Pezzetta's your best player, it's not a good scene.
Not the first time this season that comment has been uttered, and where someone steps up, and I guess that's the sign of a mediocre hockey team, right?
I feel like you're being generous if you say mediocre. It's funny is that if you told me at the beginning of this year that you will say multiple times Michael Pezzetta was the best player on the Canadiens tonight, I would have asked for whatever is in your bag in your back pocket right now, because you're clearly out of your mind. And then here we are, Michael Pezzetta, actual NHL forward. I don't want to say good, but yeah, on a night like this, if Pezzetta, like you said, is your best forward, things have gone horribly, horribly awry for the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah,
did we get an update on Allen, Andrew?
Yeah, just that he wasn't coming back to the game, so I'm guessing that it's going to be a bit, that's just the way things have gone for the Montreal Canadiens. I mean, how this season is Allen coming back? His first game back, and he can't even make it through a single period, and it's just like the insult to injury. And I was joking around a little bit with Ellen Etchingham that like Jeff Gorton hasn't had to lift a finger to complete the tank because everything has fallen into place perfectly.
No, Omicron's done that for him, right?
Oh, Omicron's done that for him. The like freak injuries have done that for him. You look at the second goal that the Boston Bruins scored today. How many goals like that have gone in against the Montreal Canadiens this season, where it's just like a nothing play and the puck like bounces up into the air out of nowhere and goes right onto the stick of an opposing player right in front of the net, or like off of a player's back into the net, or Jeff Petry tries to clear the puck and shoots it off of somebody's face into the net. Like those kinds of things. It's been an absolute curse to the point where unless you're somebody whose emotional state is completely defined by wins and losses day to day for the Montreal Canadiens, you can't help but laugh a little bit, right? Like it is legitimately funny what's gone on here.
So when did that day-to-day living and dying stop for you?
For me, the Subban trade.
Okay.
I mean, for me, like growing up, I was a huge Patrick Waugh person, right? Like that's how I got into hockey. So it broke my heart once. Okay. I kind of like strayed a little bit, became a Colorado Avalanche fan, came back when like Koivu came back from cancer, and I was like, okay, I'm in again. Moved to Montreal in 2005, and I'm like really in. Have a favorite player again, trade him again. I'm like, no, I'm done. I'm done here. We're done here. No longer doing this thing. So much more relaxed about the whole thing. It's just like the job now. The fact that I have to watch them every game, I'm glad I'm getting paid for it.
It's roughly the same. I mean, obviously, I don't live in Canada or in Montreal, and it's like I fell in now. Like I grew up watching Dominic Hasek on TV here, and that's where I first fell in love with that and those Red Wings dynasties. And then, reading about Saku Koivu's return from cancer, and then when I got back into hockey, it was the 2010 run, where I'm like, this is fun. This is absolutely ridiculous. None of this makes any sense, but I love it, and just kind of went from there. So this year's been tough after the Cup run last year, where it's just like everything is falling apart. And it's like Andrew said, you have to laugh because they had one NHL contracted forward left to recall before they went on a pause, and they're injured. They all have COVID. The team is just bad. Everything that could possibly go wrong, short of the Bell Center burning to the ground this season, has happened so far. And I'm not ruling that out because who knows with the way the season's gone. That's going to get hit by lightning or something dumb is going to happen to it in the middle of the game sometime in March now.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, barring anybody getting hurt, the Bell Center burning down, I feel like at this point would be like burning the effigy that
it's an exorcism.
Let's just move on. But now the Bell Center has like giant condo buildings attached to it. So you can't really do that anymore because people are going to get hurt. So no Bell Center burning. Let's talk about a couple of things that happened during this game, because there were a few things that like more, not like in terms of like influencing the game, but just like our takes on it. Cause there are a few things that I saw a lot of people getting on Jeff Petry in the first period when he lost his helmet and then he went in and made a play and got a penalty. And they're, oh, Jeff Petry this season, what's he thinking? If Jeff Petry doesn't make that play, it's a clear, unchecked, high danger scoring chance for, I forget who the Boston Bruin was who had the puck. But I think what people are missing there is, and sorry to make this boring, but the math. And I know that the Canadiens have a terrible penalty kill, although they were pretty decent tonight overall, considering the rest of their play. But even with a terrible penalty kill, I don't think people really know this, that the average power play doesn't even get a single scoring chance inside 2 minutes. Like, the amount of scoring chances that teams get, it's way higher on the power play than an even strength play. But over the last couple of years, it's usually like 3 to 5 teams in the entire league average more than one scoring chance per power play. So if you can completely negate a high danger scoring chance and it costs you a penalty, it's worth it to take it every single time. So as much as people are saying like, oh, this mental mistake, to me, I thought that was actually a great call by Jeff Petry. That's doing the math in your head. It's the same as like being a goaltender. You're playing the percentages, right? I thought that was a great call or a great
He
move.
also, he didn't lose his helmet. His helmet was ripped off his head.
Which should have been a penalty.
Right. And it's very strange that you're the one who's penalized when the opponent rips the helmet off of your head.
Yeah.
I mean, forget about I could do one of those I'm old enough to remember when they didn't have helmets type conversations, but I'm not really. But I think maybe Glenn Anderson was the one guy who was grandfathered in because he was from an age and was still playing without a
Craig
helmet.
McTavish.
Oh, maybe that's who I'm thinking of then. One of the Oilers, who you would of course remember too.
Yeah, I remember Craig McTavish because when I was young and collecting hockey cards, he was the only guy who didn't.
Okay,
have
so
a
then
helmet.
that's who it was. I'm confusing them. So for sure, that's who it was. But regardless, I mean, a ridiculous moment in the game. But what was the score at that point?
At that point, 0-0.
Was it okay? It was still 0-0 then. Okay.
Yeah. So at that point, I think people were still on the the Canadiens are playing pretty well here, which I think. It happens a lot.
Yeah, it was like 3
season.
shots apiece for the first 10 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. And then the Bruins were like, "Oh, this is not an NHL team."
Let's
We
score
can
2
just-
goals 20 seconds or 15 seconds apart.
Yeah, we could just roll them. It's okay. Yeah, so that was my take on the Petry thing. Scott, did you have any take on it?
He got like tackled in a headlock from behind into the boards, and to have the awareness to get up and at least, like you said, make that play is. I know he's having a miserable season by what Jeff Petry's standards are, but plays like that he's not washed out like people are thinking he is. He's, I'm assuming, still beat to all hell. And who on the Canadiens has looked good consistently this season on offense or defense? And some news, the NHL took away that Bruins defenseman's first NHL goal, and it went to Curtis Lazar. So there is something to laugh at the Bruins about tonight, I guess.
Yeah, I
Maybe.
wonder if they're going to change that, because it didn't look like it hit Lazar on the replay. I don't know.
I've given up mostly paying close attention at that point, only because I'm like, I know how this goes. It's not going to be great.
It was over by then. Yeah, it was. Other things that I had written down for this game, on the 3-on-1 shorthanded goal for Boston, which should never happen. I was blown away by Yoel Armia's back check, or lack of back check, we'll say.
The beer league back check,
oh
baby.
my god. Like, listen, I understand that this season, like, I'm sure when Omicron was like absolutely raging right before the holidays, right? And it looked like, oh man, there's so many NHLers going out, they're gonna have to pause before the season. Maybe they'll cancel the season, you know, like this could get crazy. It could be 2020 all over again. At that point, I wonder how many guys in that room were like, yes, just no more. let us go home to our families. I think Yoel Armia might have been one of them. I don't want to like insinuate too much, because
You just did.
I know I am. I don't want to, like, I'm not even really judging them, because I feel like I'd be the same way, trying to like how do you motivate yourself in a
But
season like
you
this?
don't, and that's why the game wasn't 15 to nothing for a reason. They still have that competitive spirit. They did not lie down tonight, and as terrible as it was, it really could have been worse. And I mean, I have not seen a lot of games this season. I'm not paid to watch these games, so I'll sort of jump in and jump out, and if there's something I want to see, then I'll see how the team is faring. But was this the worst game you've seen this season?
Oh, not even close.
No,
Right, exactly. But that's exactly right. I mean, there was a moment. There was the breakaway with the post. Was it Dauphin?
Yep.
Okay, that goes. It's 4-2, and suddenly there's a hockey game.
Oh, absolutely. There was
Right?
there was a stretch in the second period where the Bruins were playing flat out dumb hockey. And if the Canadiens were a good team, even a league average team, I think that lead would have been not safe, that 4-1 lead. I think there was a very real possibility that they could have blown it. And then in the third period, they're like, yeah, let's just lock it down. We're a much better team. Played not dumb. They still played a little bit dumb, but dumb enough that they could hold on, because they're just so much
Because
better.
they're playing the Montreal Canadiens.
Exactly.
And it's a
Which-
shame that we're at that point, but
Yeah.
we're at that point.
We are. And, I don't want to get too far down in the dumps, but I will say they did push, at least, like they had some pushback tonight. But I will tell you one player who does not give a shit, Mike Hoffman. That guy, he doesn't give a shit. Like, every time he plays with the puck, he reminds me of like watching myself play hockey, which is what happens is like every time I get the puck or the ball playing street hockey, I run out of time and I'm like, just flip it somewhere. And it's like you see all of his passes in the offensive zone, even on the power play, and it's just like wild in between two players. And you're like, what is he trying to do? And I just think he didn't sign up for what this season was, and he's like, nah, I'm not doing it. It's like, I'll go through the motions, but I don't know why they're putting him on the first line outside of like maybe to get some scoring out of him so they can trade him later. But 2 more years in that contract. I think he's a tradable asset, but I don't think he's tradable this year, because the effort's just not there. The scoring's not there. He can still score 30. He's got a wicked shot, but it ain't happening in this lineup.
Do you see this team getting better next year?
Yeah.
I mean, outside of Carey Price coming back and being Carey Price.
You can only go up from where they're at right now, I'm pretty sure. Like we were
That's
talking about
definitely-
Michael Pezzetta as their best player right now. The only way is to go up off the floor at this point, and someone's going to get Mike Hoffman next season in the offseason, whatever, and he's going to score 25 goals playing with like Connor McDavid in Arizona or something, because McDavid's going to get traded out of Edmonton, and everyone's going to be like, well, why couldn't he do that in Montreal? I'm going to go because this team couldn't
we
buy
didn't
a
have
goal if they tried.
Right.
Yeah, that's I can definitely see that happening. And as bad as this season is, like I was chatting on Twitter during the game about Cole Caulfield, right? And Cole Caulfield has 1 goal this year and absolutely disastrous season, right? But it's not as bad as it looks, because outside, like, he is having a bad season, unquestionably a bad season. But based on the numbers, like he's expected to have about 6 goals right now, heading into this game. And like 6 goals in 26 games, not a great season by any stretch for a guy who you want to score a hell of a lot, but it's about a 19 goal pace over 82 games. That's not a disaster, right? And that's what he's like earned via his play. He hasn't got it because nobody is scoring up to expectations on the Canadiens, so it's just this nightmare year. But there is a lot of that going on where you look at, recently the Arizona Coyotes passed the Canadiens in points percentage, and I think now that the Canadiens have lost here, I think Arizona might be ahead in actual points. Not 100% sure on that, but the Arizona Coyotes are essentially scoring what they're expected to, and like I don't remember if it was Dom Lucian from The Athletic or Jay Fresh Hockey who posted every couple days. He posts like a breakdown of like which teams are scoring above or below expected and puts the whole league on there. I think it was Jay Fresh. And the Canadiens are in the bottom 4 or 5 of the league. I think it might have been second last. They're like 22 goals below expected offensively. So like if you add 22 goals to this team, they're not good.
But some of them are Cole Caulfields for sure.
Yeah, some of them are Cole Caulfield.
Right.
Some of them are Nick Suzuki's,
Yeah.
various players. Things don't look as bleak. So like if you're that unlucky, 22 goals below expected, not even halfway through the season, like things are going to rebound next season naturally anyway. And having a clean slate where the season isn't over 10 games in, I think you get a lot more effort on a day-to-day basis where guys care and want to make a difference. And this evaluation period that the Canadiens have also gives the incoming GM and Jeff Gorton a chance to decide like who are the guys that do care, who wants to wear the jersey, right? And this is where I've been pushing lately, where they shouldn't trade Artturi Lehkonen, even though he's going to be on an expiring contract this year and probably can get a pretty decent return. He's a guy that brings it every single night, and I think you saw that from him tonight as well. He might not score a lot, but I think he's a guy that adds a lot of value. That he's getting paid less than what he's worth, which is always a good thing. And he's young enough that he could still be valuable at the end of a rebuild, which I think is something like he might be, maybe not the captain, but he might be wearing an A when this team is competitive again.
And it's funny, we talked because Dom Lucian this morning posted all those player cards for The Athletic, and I'm looking through there, and Artturi Lehkonen, like I said, the offense isn't there, but the defensive metrics that he brings and the effort that's there is what you want out of this team. You want guys who are going to try, and Lehkonen's versatile. You can have him in your bottom 6. You can have him on your PK. You can have him on your power play or in your top 6. It's there. If you don't allow yourself that flexibility, and then you trade him, you're looking for, well, we need someone to replace that. And we saw how that went with Philip Deneau this year. It's like, well, Christian Dvorak's most of what he did, and then it's not the same thing there. I'm with you on that I think Lehkonen could get a huge amount at the trade deadline, but then how do you replace that? You don't have an in-house replacement right now, at least in terms of prospects that are ready for that right now. And I just don't like the idea of trading a guy who, one, is friends with a lot of these guys in the room there and brings something this team lacks, and that's effort and defensive responsibility. And obviously the team PK isn't great, et cetera, but he's trying at least. You can't say that for everybody every single night.
But if there's nowhere to go but up from here, then maybe the answer is to trade that for future potential. And if somebody's not trying, then I'd imagine they're not going to last very long. I did want to know though, Andrew, when you said Jeff Gordon and the future GM, did you kind of laugh a little when you said it, or?
No, because I'm actually really interested in this management structure that they're bringing in. It kind of makes me think of the Toronto Raptors, right, with Masai and Bobby Webster, where you have somebody who's at the top who's got like the vision, and it's their team, right? But the GM is there not necessarily to be like the wheel and deal person, but he's the actual manager, which is what the job actually is. Like, you're managing people on a day-to-day basis. And it's kind of wild to think that the NHL or many NHL teams for a long time have had one person do that job. I mean, you look back not even a couple decades ago, decade and a half ago, you had guys like Pat Quinn who was doing that and coaching.
Right.
And you're like, did you sleep?
Right.
Like,
Right.
just crazy talk. But I'm actually interested to see how this works out, because I think it also opens the door to having someone as GM who's not necessarily like a cap person or a contract fiend, or like really dialed in with like other people around the league, like Bergevin was.
A man.
Yeah, or a man. Yeah. I mean, it allows a lot of possibilities. And I do think the Canadiens are 100% going to hire at least one of the two women that they're interviewing for this GM job. Maybe not as the GM, but they're going to be part of the management structure. I think that it's very clear that the Canadiens are trying to break the mold a little bit, and it's about damn time.
It says a lot when the Canadiens, being the most storied franchise in the league, are going to be the first team to potentially do something like this. It's a huge precedent to set for the league there. And Laura and I have talked on Locked On Canadiens about this a lot, that it's exciting to have hope that they're going to do something different, and that it feels like the culture is actually shifting for where it needs to be, instead of just saying it is and then doing the same thing a little different. They're actually changing the way things are going here. And that's kind of what's keeping me going through this season right now is, yeah, the team's bad and there's a lot of draft scouting to be done, but it's an entire new regime coming in here. Since I've closely followed hockey, it's just been Mark Bergevin and Trevor Timmons, etc. This is entirely new, and I actually can't wait to see what they're doing here. And, Gordon's made a few smart moves so far with the hiring, the VP of communications, some of the waiver claims. There's smart moves being made there, and I can't wait to see when he has a full staff that they can kind of put their heads together and see, how do we get this team back where it needs to be? They were in a Stanley Cup final less than 6 months ago. Was it a little bit fluky? Maybe, but there's talent there to make that happen. How can we get that team there next?
Haley Wickenheiser's in the Leafs organization, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I think I believe it's in a coaching role.
Okay.
Like a player development and skills coaching, I believe, but people are welcome to correct me on that. If she actually might have been given a promotion over the offseason. I think she might also.
I can't remember. I know. All to say, I mean, look, this would be amazing. We are not reinventing the wheel here.
No,
right?
no. I mean, and the fact is, here's the thing: inviting women into the picture is great. It's
don't
not
mind
like,
the cameo.
No. The cameo for everybody loves
Right.
a cat cameo.
Okay, good.
It's like, it's not like it's breaking boundaries or fixing everything that should have been fixed. Like, it's not like they're interviewing people who are from different backgrounds either, right? Like,
Right. Right.
it's just also women, like, it's not hugely diverse, and maybe they will make some other hires that will increase diversity within the organization, but it's just like one little baby step, right? And yeah, it's about time, and it's good to see. And like, the hiring of Chantal Maccabi is fantastic, because not only is she someone who has earned this, and I can't imagine the garbage
We're also
she put up with
celebrating.
early in her career.
We're celebrating a hire that hasn't happened yet. Right.
Yes.
We're absolutely celebrating the Montreal Canadiens hiring of a female, maybe not the GM, maybe the number 2, maybe the number 3, I guess, in this position, but we should maybe just like cool our jets a bit before
We're celebrating
until she's hired.
We're celebrating consideration.
That's pathetic.
The bar
That's
is
hockey.
the floor.
The
It's
bar-
not even on the floor. It's 6 feet into the floor, and you're
Yeah.
stepping over it. That's where we're at with this season right now.
Jackhammered right through the concrete. It's buried deep.
They might consider possibly doing this really cool thing where I'm like, yes, that's exactly
They got
what I wanted.
Spanked by the Bruins, but they might hire a woman.
It's
Wow.
like if you go from what they did at the draft to this, you understand where
Right.
the
Okay,
excitement
fine.
comes.
Fine. Fair.
It's a
Fair.
When you
Let
put
her-
it like that, yeah,
let
that makes
her-
a lot more sense.
And let her first move be to terminate his contract.
Well,
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna do it.
I don't think so either.
No.
I don't think so either.
I wouldn't
But
be mad
some
at
of-
it, but
Some of us won't have short memories on that one, I would imagine.
No, I mean I think that there are a lot of people with vested interests who are trying to pretend that everything's all hunky dory now that he's done his suspension. But
Oh, yeah,
It-
26 games?
Yeah.
That was it, right?
yeah,
Uh-huh. Okay.
real important. But yeah, we'll transition from that real smoothly into if you like this show and if you like the Steve Dangle podcast or the Julian and CJ show or Agent Provocateur, you can download the SDPN app where you can watch this video or all those videos, those shows. Not only can you watch them on the app, you can do what you can't do on YouTube, which is minimize the screen so that the video plays in the bottom corner of your phone, or you can move it around and use other apps. The YouTube app doesn't let you do it, but you can do it with YouTube videos on the SDPN app. You can also listen to the shows, and you can check out some sick Game Over merchandise, like this
Ooh.
amazing mug, or some SDPN, this way. Beautiful merchandise designed by the one and only Jesse Blake. Check it out. All right, so I asked a question of the day essentially on Twitter during the game as the game was beginning, and it was like a pretty low bar question. We're talking about low bars, right? I asked essentially, what do you want to see on the ice for as this season goes on? Because it's a lost season, right? Like nobody's gonna say, "Oh, I want Cole Caulfield to score 40 goals like Trevor Zegras predicted," because it's not gonna happen. So I'm trying to find it here, so I'm just stalling. But I asked, what do you want to see? I'm going to read off some answers, and we'll talk about them. Matt Drake, friend of the show, friend of Eyes on the Prize, says Larry Dolphin's hat trick. That's Laurent Dauphin. Mike Pizzetta, Gordie Howe hat trick. I mean, he almost got there tonight. Yeah, both of those are fun. I think what Matt's really getting at is fun, right?
Yeah.
Jim for Hockey in Ottawa says, I think I want to see honest effort. Win-loss isn't really a worry at this point, but don't be embarrassing would be a nice change. Like I said, the bar's on the floor. And play the kids. No need to overplay bad vets right now. You mean like Yoel Armia on the second line tonight? Andre Rasico says, for Gallagher to score more goals than disallowed goals. Listen, we can't work miracles. Okay? The league
Also,
does not
hi,
want
Andre
Gallagher to
Rasico.
score. Yeah, that's a high bar. We're looking for low bars here. Daryl says maybe just 1-2 game win streak. Oh my god.
oh god, this team's so sad.
It's so depressing. It's
Wow.
We celebrated them playing 3 good-ish games in a row where I think they won one of them. Like it was a winning streak, which
Yep.
oh my
Yep.
god.
Yep. Effort with a plan from Habs fan in Hogtown. Yeah, that sounds pretty nice. Someone says, Ebro says, same as the last 2 seasons. Young players stepping up to prominent roles, passengers being cut from the team, and the team playing hard for 60 minutes, whether it's a race for the last overall or the Stanley Cup. I think that's very reasonable and essentially what I think everyone at this point is hoping for. I think that's really reasonable. For Ducharme to stop finding a way for Paquette to be in the lineup would be a great start. Man, people really hate Cedric Paquette, hey?
He
Why?
did the Rene Bourque thing tonight where there was years ago when Rene Bourque was here, there was a puck and there's an open net where someone scored it and then Bourque comes in to try and throw it in the empty net and he misses 3 times on the hooking penalty when the
that
Habs
play.
went to
I
the
vaguely
power
remember
play.
that.
Oh
I
my
watched
God.
Cedric Paquette. The puck's right at his feet. I'm like, all he's got to do, it's a tap in. You can lift this up. I've seen you do this. And then he just misses it entirely. And I just kind of went, oh my God, we're doing this. Like, And the thing is, he's been outplayed by every AHL call-up. Dauphin, Videmo, Ryan Paling, probably Rem Pitlick here shortly. And it's like, I get that you need bodies, but sooner or later, you got to kind of realize this isn't working at all. And then he takes a penalty and you're on the penalty kill, and we know how that goes. So it's like, I get the frustration at least a little bit.
Yeah.
I find that getting mad at these afterthoughts, these guys who in 20 years will be rattling off as names of can you believe that guy played for the 2022 version of Juha Lind, if you will. And I don't understand the wasted space, and they're filling a role. We know that these guys, it's not their fault, right?
Yeah,
it's not his fault. Right.
This season's going to be a fun time of remember some guys like we did with the 2012 season.
That's exactly it.
Do you remember Petry Nokalainen?
Was he above or below the Blunden line?
Oh, way below. Way below.
Remember some guys? It's my favorite game in the world to play with the Canadiens because they've had some real bad years with remember some guys. And that name sounds vaguely familiar in that I don't remember anything about him, but you could be making him up for all I know. And I'd be like, yeah, he played for the Habs, right? Like, that sounds right.
Oh, man. Only Band says, wouldn't hate to see Caulfield show some spark. Yeah, I mean, I think that when given a chance, he does show some spark. The thing that I want to see from Cole Caulfield is just staple him to a line with Artturi Lehkonen and Nick Suzuki and let it ride. You don't need to be worrying about wins and losses. Let Suzuki and Caulfield figure out chemistry so that they can work together long term. And Lehkonen's there to insulate, to forecheck, to create space for them. I think that line's something that could work and that I would want to see. Get Mike Hoffman the hell off that line. He doesn't bring anything to it. And if you look at his numbers, like Suzuki with and without Hoffman this year, it's like with Hoffman, they're getting like 30% of the shot attempts. And without him, he's like at 50. He just absolutely tanks them.
Andrew, did anybody tweet you saying that they just want no major injuries to occur between here and the end of the season?
Nope, the bar is not quite that low. The last one was Laura, the active stick, Scott's co-host on Locked On Canadiens. She said a win, and I replied, lower your expectation.
I saw that one.
Effort would be nice.
They're on pace for 17 wins this season, and I'm not sure they get it.
Wow.
This
is the worst team in the history of the franchise, right?
Oh, by far they are.
If the Green Bay Packers make the Super Bowl, they have 13 wins right now. Will the Packers finish this season with more wins than the Montreal Canadiens? And at this point, if 17 is the bar, I don't know if they do it. Unless they fire Ducharme and they get that, dead cat bounce and they kind of get a couple of wins together for whomever takes over after that. But
they already said he's not getting fired. Yeah.
I mean, that can change if he does something terrible, but I don't think he's done anything that will force their hands, right? Like
at this point, I don't think
more, but I don't know. He could be also acting under their instruction, right? Of just play it out. And maybe part of the reason why he's relying on veterans is so they can figure out who needs to get traded off the island as fast as possible, right? So maybe they're not worried too much about evaluating the young kids. All right, so the last thing that I had written down for today was the one thing that I took from this game that was actually kind of exciting. This is the first Habs Bruins game in 5 years that felt like a Habs Bruins game.
You mean people punched each other in the face?
Where there was actual intensity. Listen, this rivalry, once Lucic was gone, once Subban was gone, once Dale Weiss was gone, Alexei Emelin was gone, it died. It died. Before the Habs got bad, this rivalry was dead in the water. It's weird. All of the emotion was out, even though Brad Marchand was still a shithead. And he tried to headshot Suzuki today without the puck, and in a real league, that would be an immediate suspension, but they're going to just let him get away with it because he's Brad Marchand and the refs think he's funny. But Marchand's always been there and he adds, but the Canadiens just haven't had anything going. And I think Michael Pezzetta kind of reignited something there. So like that, even though they're nowhere close to equal teams, the Bruins are going to kick their butts for the next couple seasons. That was interesting to see that there's actual emotion between these two teams because it hasn't felt like a rivalry in a long time.
I haven't noticed the same thing. I got to be honest with you. I've never felt that rivalry went away. And if anything, when you gave me the choice of games to do, I looked for the Bruins game because to me, that's the exciting one. That's always been the rivalry that even more than the Leafs, that's always been for me, the one that actually angered me. Because when I was a kid, the Bruins actually used to piss me off. There were some series where they beat us where it actually hurt. And then there was those great series in the early and mid 2000s. And it's just, that's never gone away, at least as a fan for me. Maybe on the ice, you're saying it looked different in the last couple of years, and maybe I haven't paid as close attention. But for me, this was your regular old Habs Bruins game. Yeah, maybe we ended up on the wrong side of it, but like Scott, you said it, there was some ugliness to tonight's game that is kind of de rigueur for a Habs Bruins game.
I think part of it is we haven't seen the Bruins in the playoffs since 2014, when that series went absolutely bonkers off the rails for a lot of different reasons. When you don't see a team in the playoffs for so long, like the rivalry with Toronto cooled because Toronto, quite frankly, sucked for a long time and then got good and the Habs got bad and it didn't matter until the playoffs happened. And then and the Canadian division itself, and that was just back full swing. When you don't see a team when it matters for the longest time, it kind of dies off. Like the Habs and Flyers used to have a rivalry, back in the 70s. And when that went away, no one really considered them rivals. It was the Bruins because they always seemed to come together in the playoffs on their way to the Stanley Cup one way or the other. And when you don't have that anymore, it's like, yeah, they're in the same division, original six, and they don't like each other. But that playoff always adds like a spark to, even if it's simmering a little bit, and brings it to that next level. And tonight, ugly game, yeah, but it had that I don't want to say it's stupid, but it has that stupidity to it that you only get in certain rivalry games. Yes. You get guys like Michael Pezzetta who are in their element in that. It's like, I am going to cause trouble on purpose. And that's what he does. And he's surprisingly good at the NHL level. How often do you see Patrice Bergeron attack a fourth line AHLer? That's impressive work by a 23-year-old kid, honestly.
Yeah, and this is what I'm coming back to with the Habs Bruins rivalry is I'm thinking back over the last 5 years and like how many games have been memorable? Whereas like I can still remember memorable regular season, not playoff games from back when it was like Pacioretty scoring in overtime and like shoving Chara after the whistle, right? And then the next 3 games afterwards, Chara's trying to injure him and breaks his neck. Like that kind of stuff. It all happened in the regular season. There was fire at all times. Subban just like absolutely destroying Marchand in the middle of open ice where Marchand's trying to clean zone entry. The playoffs matter 100%, but this rivalry has always had something special over the last few decades where like there's players that just butt heads and it ignites things that only this rivalry really has. Right, like that level of stupidity, but
it goes back further than that, Andrew.
100%. I think
it goes back further than the few decades that we remember.
Of course,
and I think the difference between now and then is that for a lot of that time, especially, I mean, those teams from 10 years ago were relevant Montreal Canadiens teams, and they were playing against Boston Bruins teams that were either on their way to the Stanley Cup Finals or had just come from winning a Stanley Cup Finals. It's just a different place. It's hard to expect this Montreal Canadiens team to deliver a memorable game.
But tonight was kind of memorable, even though they lost 5-1. That's what I'm kind of saying is like, I think people will remember 30 games from now, maybe even next year, Michael Pezzetta just pissing off Patrice Bergeron enough to take a dumb penalty because Patrice Bergeron
he wins tonight's Steve Bégin award.
Yeah. Listen, Steve Bégin was wildly entertaining when the Canadiens were terrible. And then when they started making the playoffs, started taking penalties that kept them out of the playoffs. I digress. And that's probably Michael Pezzetta's fate as well. Those kinds of players are fun, but probably not on competitive teams. I think that's really all I've got for tonight. I really enjoyed chatting with you both. I think that despite the scoreline, it was a pretty fun game overall. I'm excited to be back at this. Honestly, the last few weeks have been so weird for me. Caught COVID over the holidays. Was supposed to do a show on the World Juniors. World Juniors get canceled. And then I'm like, all right, well, I'll go back to the Montreal games, and then the Canadians get like all of their home games nuked. So who knows what's going on? But really enjoyed chatting with you both. First, Dave, then Scott. Tell everybody where they can find your stuff.
Oh, anywhere you get your podcast, just type in Delve the New Normal and catch me coast to coast on Bell Media every once in a while. I just did a big run over the holidays. It was a lot of fun getting to speak to everybody all across Canada. Hope to do it again soon.
As for me, you can find me on Twitter at Scott Matla. You can find my podcast with the active stick Laura Saba at LO_Canadiens, wherever you get your podcast, Locked On Canadiens. And I do my writing covering the Rocket and whatever analysis I can currently do on the Montreal Canadiens at Habs Eyes on the Prize.
Absolutely. I think we didn't even get to touch on Marc Bergevin, so I'm going to save that for the next show. Fun stuff. Sorry, Bergevin, you got bumped. All right. Talk to you guys soon. Really
Thanks,
enjoyed
Andrew.
it. Thanks everyone
Bye,
for
guys.
tuning in to this show in this shit heap of a season. You can't even understand how much I appreciate every person who clicks on this link, whether it's the show live or the YouTube video after or a podcast.